Hey guys, this is Naomi, the PM for Nintendo. Our team includes me, Ivan, Tim, and Nov. Our project can be accessed through the link p4.nli.tech. We are currently on the homepage showing a brief description of our project. Our group focused on visualizing the social anxiety dataset found on Kaggle so that we could view trends on social anxiety based on general statistics, demographics, mental health history, and lifestyle choices. We have separate pages for each of these categories shown in the navigation bar. Under General Statistics, we can see a brief sneak peek of different graphs that we have created, covering the factors sleep hours, occupation, and family history. First, we have a line graph displaying sleep hours versus anxiety level. Using chart.js has been an efficient way of creating graphs as we do not need to manually create many things. For example, the x and y axes are scaled automatically according to the range of the corresponding datasets. Another benefit is the ability to create various types of graphs. Here, our second graph displays a bar chart of the average anxiety by occupation, such as teachers, musicians, and engineers. Finally, chart.js is also able to display multiple datasets on the same graph. Here we have an anxiety level distribution with family history. The blue graphs or the blue bars represent the participants who reported they had a family history of anxiety, while the pink bars represent participants who reported that they did not have a family history of anxiety. This can be seen in the legend at the top. Some of our pages are accessible for logged-in users only. For example, if we try to access the demographics page, the user will be prompted to log in. After logging in, we are now able to view all pages.
Hello, Devo Nation. It's Devo Ivan Goncher here, and we are currently on the demographics page of our team's website, showcasing statistics from the social anxiety dataset. On this page, we delve into some of the important background information that makes up a person's experiences, daily life, and identity, see how these unique factors affect their feelings of anxiety. This quick intro at the top briefs the user on the message as they dive in, as we showcase the three main demographics we decided to focus on: age, gender, and occupation. These are three very general and important factors to consider how being a part of these certain groups could lead to anxiety. For every element, we have a brief insight into the data above the graph, followed by the graph, and finally, a quick explanation of the graph's content. For instance, here we have the age section. We can read on the range of ages, sample sizes of each group, and consistency, followed by a line graph generated by chart.js showing the correlation between age and anxiety. Then we have the summary, where we can see that while it stays fairly consistent from ages 20 to 49, the other ends of the spectrum have a lot lower anxiety. With the chart.js graph, you can hover over certain points to see specific values. Next, we have gender, which follows the same structure as age. This was surprisingly one of the most even categories, with roughly one of the same number of participants per unique response, and its very similar average anxiety rates, perhaps being a useful indicator of the reliability of these studies and samples. Finally, we have occupation, where the average anxiety level of each of 13 unique occupation options is displayed. Here we see no staggering differences, but some noticeable disparities between certain jobs.
Hey Devo Nation, I'm Tim. Thank you to Ivan for explaining demographics. I'll be going into mental health, which is basically the why behind anxiety, and we'll be looking at family history, therapy frequency, and stress levels. So let's dive right into it. With family history, it's one of the biggest risk factors, and according to UNC Health, children are actually up to 7 times more likely to develop it themselves if their parents had anxiety disorders. And that really makes you think, like 7 times is low key insane, isn't it? Like some of us might have inherited more than just our dad's hairline. Like damn. In our data set, around 53% of participants reported having a family history of anxiety, and our chart breaks it down by anxiety level, and it really shows that even though both groups had anxiety level, like pretty had relatively high anxiety, there's a much more noticeable trend toward higher levels when it is present in your family. So next we can look at therapy frequency, which is basically how often someone went to therapy every single month. It usually ranges from around 0 to 12 sessions, as you guys can see, with most people landing at between 0 and 2 sessions. Um, and this graph actually shows something really interesting. You would have thought that if someone goes to therapy a lot, they would get better, and that would mean that they would be less anxious all the time. But no, this actually shows that people who went to therapy more often actually seem to be more anxious. And I guess that kind of makes sense when you think about it because look at everyone at STY, right? All of us are always stressed all the time from like having tests and like not studying or like, and a lot of people you'll probably hear like, oh my God, I'm gonna need therapy after this. Like I'm actually not gonna make it out. But most of them don't actually end up going to therapy. So I guess it really shows that if you're going to therapy a lot, you probably have it really bad already. And you're gonna be much more anxious than the normal person. And then we can look at stress level, in which we ask participants to rate their stress level from 1 to 10. And the results were fairly evenly distributed from 1 through 7, with a slight increase from 8 to 10, with the average being 5.86, which does suggest a fairly balanced but slightly high leaning experience among participants. So, although this page helps connect the dots between the data and the lived experience of anxiety, it does go to show that there is a lot more than just what meets the eye. And this page helps tell this specific part of the story. And from here, we can look at another part in lifestyle. All right, so let's look at lifestyle. So this isn't about avocado toast or what time you do in yoga. We're looking at sleep, physical activity, and alcohol consumption. These three everyday habits that can easily like make or break your mental health. So let's start with sleep because it's the one thing that we all know that none of us are getting enough of. And in our data set, participants reported sleeping anywhere from a shocking 2.3 hours to a luxurious 11.3 hours per night, with the most common response being somewhere around 7 hours, an average of 6.65. It's not bad. Could be a lot better though. So we try our sleep hours against anxiety levels, and the trend was pretty clear. Less sleep, more anxiety. So people clocking 2 to 4 hours were having crazy high anxiety levels of 8 to 9, while those of 8 hours or more were chilling at closer to 1 and 3. So, sleep is basically therapy that you don't have to pay for. And then next, let's look at physical activity, in which we all know exercise is good for, for your mental health. It's good for anxiety. It's great. And our data mostly backs that up. The key word on mostly because there is that huge spike when you look at 9 hours or more. But I guess you could probably assume that that's an athlete, and that's a lot of like stuff to be stressed about as an athlete. But anywhere ranging from like 2.9 to like 3 point something hours a week of exercise has a pretty nice anxiety level, and it drops. It gives a clear drop down to like 3. And finally, we can look at alcohol, our favorite socially acceptable anxiety amplifier. So it shows that participants reported drinking anywhere from 0 to 19 drinks a week, with the average about 9.7 drinks. Which is kind of impressive and also concerning at the same time. But if we look at it, there was a huge spike from 4 to 5 drinks per week. So it just goes pretty much to show that anywhere over like 4 drinks is gonna increase your anxiety like crazy. And yeah, that's pretty much all from our website. Thank you for listening.